Hello and welcome to another solo Ask AJ. I'm on my own again. I can't remember why I was on my own last week, but this week I'm on my own because the lovely Philip, who is now 30 years old, is in Vegas. So I hope he's having a fantastic time over there. And in other news, my dog is lame. He was digging this morning in the grounds outside the office to tell the landlord, and he's hurt his shoulder, so we had to take him to the vet this afternoon. So thank you, Oak Hill, for fitting him in so quickly. But he's got a week without walks. He's going to be climbing the flipping walls by this time next week, and so am I. Okay, so let's just dive into this news report that's just come out. Actually came out yesterday, so it's not really stop press, but we'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say it's today. So this is actually news from Rightmove. And Rightmove have now said, and obviously they track statistics because they have probably 93% of all the properties in the UK coming to the market through their portal. That's what it is, it's a portal, so it's an aggregate site of all the estate agents in the UK, of which there are about 18,000, and 93% of all those properties are put on Rightmove, with the exception of A, London, B, some of the Northwest, C, little pockets of agents that don't try it or don't use it, and D, people who don't want to come to the open market, who want a discreet selling process, and which we also facilitate here at Ashdown Jones. But we know that if it doesn't go on the open market, we don't know whether we've got the full potential price for that house or value. So we always recommend open market unless there's a very good reason not to. So let's just dive into it. Biggest ever monthly price jump sets new record high as movers fear missing out. So price of property coming to market has risen by 2.3% this month, and if you do your sums over a yearly rate, that's probably in the 30s, because obviously it's aggregate, to a record high of 348,000. So the average property in the UK is about 350,000 these days, which is an insane amount. So I actually went to see a property yesterday. Lovely little house, probably what I would have considered would be a starter home, buying it as investment, and it's on the market for 300,000. And it wouldn't have been that many years ago that would have only been 200,000. So prices are really high, and for those of us with kids that would like to buy or are buying, it's very, very difficult. So it's the biggest monthly jump in pounds recorded by Rightmove in more than 20 years. In fact, it says in this news report that prices are now 10% higher, 9.5% higher than a year ago, which is the highest rate of annual growth since September 2014. Now, interestingly enough, here in the Lake District for the high value homes, we've seen 20 or 30% price increases since the beginning of the pandemic, which is crazy, absolutely crazy. However, a little caveat on that. One is prices have been pretty stagnant for a very long time here in the Lakes. It might not feel like it, but certainly at the high end, it definitely had been. So there was definitely a vacuum created there. And I think we've just caught up with ourselves. And prices are actually pretty undervalued here in the Lakes. We sold a house on Middle Entrance Drive for 1.15 million, 2 years ago, which is 2019, 2020, I think. Yeah, before the pandemic, it's 2019, 3 years ago. And that same property had been purchased in 2012 for 1.25 million. So that is a negative, over 10 years or whatever that they'd had it. So, that's not good, is it, from an investment point of view? So I think we've caught up with ourselves. That's where I think the extra 20 or 30% has come from. There are signs, this is Tim Bannister from it's actually Rightmove's Director of Property Data. A great title. So he says there are signs that buyers and sellers are fearing missing out in the current competitive market. So instead of finding a house and then putting theirs on the market, they're doing it the other way around now. They're putting theirs on the market and then finding a house to make sure they don't miss out when they find the right house, because estate agents like us won't take somebody seriously unless they're in a position to go ahead with the offer and proceed with the offer. We're not going to take an offer from somebody or allow our lovely sellers, clients, to take an offer from somebody who isn't in a position to actually move, because you don't know what's going to happen and whether that's going to sell. More potential buyers are sending inquiries to agents, and that number is up by 16% year on year, which is interesting because usually it's an increase in stock, which is properties on the market, that would then increase the number of buyers. But it does actually say new property listings are up 11%, so still a differential there compared to the same period last year. Now, to give you more on the ground numbers, I can tell you that in February 2020, there were 681 properties for sale within 15 miles radius of Ambleside, which is basically the national park. So that's 681. February 21, 536. And February 22, 198. So we've gone from 681 to 198 within the space of 2 years. And that was before the pandemic, the February 2020. So that is a massive, massive drop. It also says that there's, or Tim says that there's still is a lot of pandemic-driven moves. We're not really seeing that at Ashdown Jones. We think that the pandemic-driven moves have kind of gone now, and what we're seeing now is price-driven moves. So obviously the normal run of lifetime events that happen that make people want to move, which could be a birth. My daughter is eight days overdue today, I think. Still not happened. It could be a birth, it could be a wedding, it could be a death in the family, it could be an inheritance coming to you, and then you might want to sell both houses and buy a bigger house. So there's usually a life event that precipitates our the purchases that we see, and I don't think that is anything to do with the pandemic. That is separate from the pandemic. What we have noticed is a massive jump in property valuation requests. So this is people phoning our office saying, can we please have an up-to-date valuation on our house? And that's partly because we've sent out a letter to every FG and H council tax bound property in the Lake District and said, would you like an up-to-date evaluation on your house? So lots of people aren't ready to move. Last year I went to see 230 houses, of which 70 came to market. So it gives you an indication there's 2/3 of those out there. So 160 people who didn't move but were definitely tempted to at least get a valuation. So they may come to market this year. And our stock at the moment is, what does that say there? Is it 9?
9.
Yeah, whereas just 2 weeks ago that was 6. And how many have got coming to market? 11 coming to market, so that would put us on 20. Sometimes there isn't a direct, so it doesn't kind of go from 9 to 20 because some of the ones that are on the market might be under offer by the time the 11 come to market, but it gives you an idea. And I think in previous updates we've said the stock was being 6, so 6 available properties and maybe only 5 coming to market, so definitely much lower than we want. In fact, we want to get to 30, which seems to be an ever-moving goalpost. What else? So a market that is still very, very short of available stock is fueling this currently very competitive market. The number of new sellers listing their home for sale is up by 11%. I already said that actually, so I'm just repeating myself. So let me go to, so my lovely friend Ben Hudson from Hudson Moody in York, so he runs an estate agency in York. He says it's very difficult for buyers at the moment. So if you're a buyer, we are very sympathetic to you. We just relisted a property called Far Todd, I think, over near Kendal, which is a beautiful little cottage that can be holiday let. And it's literally, the sale's just fallen through, personal circumstances, and now it's come back to the market. And I think we've had to close viewings at 20 viewings or something. So very, very, very difficult if you're thinking about or you're trying to buy a house at the moment in the Lake District. Not a lot of choice, as you've seen, and very tough competition. What Ben says is if you are considering selling soon, take action now, because the more traditional seasonal markets are going to return after 2 years of frenetic pandemic markets. We are going out to value more properties, says Ben, and seeing more new listings come to the market for sale. And we are seeing signs of a busy but more traditional spring season. So what he's saying is, whereas before the available properties was here and the buyers were here, that is now evening up because the buyers might stay the same, but the properties on the market are going to catch up to it. And over the next few months, I think we will see a flattening off of this frenetic price rise. So where we used to be able to put a property on the market at 1.5 and maybe get offers at 1.6, 1.7, I think over the next 6 to 8 months, we're going to be putting a property on the market at 1.5 and getting 1.5. Now, we always say to somebody that's inquiring about a house, you are going to have to pay at least asking price. So we need to get that, need to be realistic right from the start. That hasn't always been the case, as I'm sure those of you who've been in the property market for a little while know. But in previous times, you put the property on the market 1.5, you would maybe hope for 1.4 to 1.45. So things have been very, very different the last couple of years, but I think we will see a return to that over the next 2 years. So this is the bottom line. If you're thinking about selling in the Lake District right now, sell sooner rather than later, because we have no way of knowing what's going to happen with all these new properties coming to market over the next few months. If you are wanting to sit tight, just know that the price has peaked now, we believe, and therefore the price you will get in a year, 2 years' time might be the same or slightly less than you're seeing now. So now is the time to maximise if you really want to, but if you are upsizing, you might want to wait for a more stable market in a year or two's time. If you're downsizing or just releasing by selling and not buying again, then actually now is the best time to do that. And that's pretty much it. I feel like news at 10 here. I think that's everything I want to tell you about this new information from Rightmove. It sounds a bit scary. It's not really. It just means you need to know your facts before you put the property on the market. And if you're not sure, then call us out, because we would love to tell you whether we think that right now is the right time to sell or not. And that's it. Thanks very much for watching Ask AJ. And if Phil, you're watching from Vegas, stop watching and go and find the nearest burger bar. And I'll see you soon.